Hi everyone, welcome. Okay guys, let's talk Harry and Sentebale and my take on it. I'm going to look at it from an South African point of view to start off with. We all know that Diana was basically the first person who broke the stigma with regards to HIV/AIDS by hugging, holding hands and picking up small children. Diana did more for this horrible, deadly virus than anyone before her and even maybe after her. Because regardless of how much money people gave or donated, every human being has physical needs like the need for shelter, food, and so on. But sometimes there is a need to be seen, heard, and loved. And that need can be almost as pressing as the physical need for food and shelter and so on. Harry spent his gap year or part of his gap year in Lesotho. Like in many other places in Africa, Lesotho has a relatively high incidence of HIV and AIDS. So to cut a long story short, Harry started Sentebale in 2005-2006 in collaboration obviously with Prince Sizo. Now first I'm going to read Dr. Sophie Chanduka's statement to you. It is rather long, but please stick with me because I'm going to comment on a few things she said. I chose to join Sentebale first and foremost as a proud African who understands that in the spirit of Ubuntu, to whom much is given, much is expected. Everything I do at Sentebale is in pursuit of the integrity of the organization, its mission, and the young people we are serving. My actions are guided by the principles of fairness and equitable treatment for all, regardless of social status or financial means. There are people in this world who behave as though they are above the law and mistreat people, and then play the victim card and use the very press they disdain to harm people who have the courage to challenge their conduct. Discerning readers will ask themselves, why would the chair of the board report her own trustees to the Charity Commission? Why would the High Court of England and Wales accept her application to hear the matter at all if the case has no merit? Well, because beneath all the victim narrative and fiction that has been syndicated to the press is the story of a woman who dared to blow the whistle about issues of poor governance, weak executive management, abuse of power, bullying, harassment, misogyny, misogynoir, and the cover-up that ensued. I could be anyone. I just happen to be an educated woman who understands that the law will guide and protect me. I will say nothing further on this matter at this time. I have one job. I must focus on fundraising for the very important work of the young people who inspire the incredible team at Sentebale, who make sacrifices daily at a time when geopolitics is severely impacting funding for development work in Africa. For me, this is not a vanity project from which I can resign when I'm called to account. I am an African who has had the privilege of world-class education and career. I will not be intimidated. I must stand for something. I stand for those other women who do not have the ways and means. I'm indebted to those who have stood by me and picked up my urgent call for help so that we can continue the mission at Sentebale. I will continue to faithfully perform my role as chair of the board, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with others who are interested in issues of health, wealth, and climate resilience for young people in Africa. For me, some of her words are very telling, particularly these. My actions are guided by the principles of fairness and equitable treatment for all, regardless of social status or financial means. There are people in this world who behave as though they are above the law and mistreat people and then play the victim card and use the very press they disdain to harm people who have the courage to challenge their conduct. Now, my dear friends, I can almost guarantee you that half of the people hearing or reading this thought what I initially thought, and that was that she was talking about Harry and Harry alone. But let me tell you, she may not be talking about him alone. Harry and his mates are inclined to treat other men and women, but particularly women, like something stuck under their shoes. Harry had always been an entitled brat and got some kind of satisfaction out of belittling other people. And like I said, it was said of Harry and his friends. Now, if you add skin color to the equation, then you get a whole different dimension of disgusting. I have heard it, seen it, and you know what? Even experienced it, even though I'm white. I've seen and heard how South African whites spoke down to black people in my younger years. But these days you do not hear it much, if at all. But what you do still hear are foreigners speaking to black people like they are deaf or 3 years old. When it comes to sort of general practice, if someone asks you where you are from and you add anything with Africa in it, their attitude changes almost immediately. I experienced it a lot on the channel, and there are really times where I have to bite my tongue. Someone in my comment section boldly said just a short while ago that I'm lying or whatever because I cannot know what I know because I'm South African. You see, Harry used the term unconscious bias many times, and in reality, you cannot really have such a thing as unconscious bias. But I sort of have an idea of what he was trying to explain or what they are trying to explain by using that phrase. Many Europeans are still of the opinion that African people are uneducated, stupid, naive. Well, just like in your own countries, there are some who are uneducated, dumb, and or naive. But like in your own countries, there are among us the educated, intelligent, and streetwise people who can stand up to anyone in the world. It does not always even depend on your race. I am a pale-skinned South African and have been treated like a moron in other countries purely because I am South African. Luckily for me, I am expert at doing a mental eye roll, and I have long since learned that those who think lions are still roaming the streets of Johannesburg and other wild animals the streets of Cape Town are these snobby, my shit does not stink ignoramuses, just like Harry and likely Mark Dyer, and by means of his status, not his ignorance, likely also Prince Sizo. In any event, in the very rural areas, especially if he is chief or some sort of chief, he would think he is superior to everyone and in particular women. Then they send their daughters to go study and they become people like Dr. Sophie Chanduka. And the men in particularly rural areas of Africa do not really deal well with the likes of Dr. Sophie Chanduka. They're not used to it. They just don't. In the cities and in the towns, it's very different, equal rights and all those things. But in the rural areas, it is indeed true. that the whole culture is still very, very different. Anyway, but, yes, like I keep saying in every video these days, there is always a but. You will laugh, but I'm going to place the blame of this chaos directly in front of Meghan Markle's door as well. Yes, laugh. I know what it sounds like. I can hear you guys say, yeah, if the neighbour's cat has kittens, it would be Meghan Markle's fault. But in this case, hear me out. I've done some homework to prove my point. Harry visited Lesotho for the first time 24 years ago during his gap year. Now make no mistake, in photographs Lesotho can sometimes look brown and dusty, but the kingdom of Lesotho is in reality majestic. It is a tiny landlocked country, but God had put every ounce of creativity into that tiny little country. It touches the soul in places you did not know you had. But like any other, it has problems, like getting essential services to rural communities, poverty, and as a result, a high HIV/AIDS rate. So in 2006, Harry co-founded the charity Sentebale with Lesotho's Prince Seeiso. The organization was founded in the memories of their mothers. Harry was even given an honorary Sesotho royal name, namely Mohale, which means warrior. So I'm really going to take the long route to get to my point because there is an important story to tell. Harry arrived in Lesotho for the first time in 2004. Except for one photo call, he was mostly left alone and Prince Seeiso took him on a tour of his country. Harry returned in 2005. In his own words, he went to revisit the community projects he worked on during his gap year. He also brought with him items from the British Red Cross, like for instance a braille machine. Like the year before, he was surrounded by children wherever he went, and he admitted that he loved children. Come 2006, Harry was back again. This time, his visit would include the launch of Sentebale. Harry was in his element and even did some work in the maize fields in Forogong. 2007, the very next year, and there was Harry again, back in Lesotho, visiting a UNICEF-supported HIV Awareness Day in Mohale's Hoek. 2008, and Harry returns to Lesotho with 26 of his fellow soldiers from the Household Cavalry to rebuild a school for children with chronic physical and mental disabilities. 2010, before he deployed to Afghanistan, Harry and William undertook a trip to Botswana, Lesotho and South Africa. 2013, and Harry is back in Lesotho. 2014, and where does Harry go in his short time off? Lesotho. 2015. In 2015, Harry meets King Letsie III, and later Harry and Prince Seeiso opened the Sentebale Mamohatu Children's Centre. And then the shit falls apart. Harry meets Meghan in 2016, gets engaged in 2017, married in 2018, and does not go back to Lesotho until 2024. And it's a different Harry who went back to Lesotho, a more insincere Harry, a Harry who is so aware of himself, a Harry who is posing and waving his hands and wrist as he gets all philosophical. No longer the kid, the young man, or the man who found joy in being in the valleys and mountains of Lesotho, who played soccer with the children, sat in a classroom with them. He was no longer the prince who had one or two shoots during a visit and spent the rest of the time doing what he was doing. But instead, in 2024, he was performing for the cameras more than he was performing his duties as co-founder of Sentebale. Now, why would that be, I wonder? Well, let me enlighten you, because there was nothing in it for Meghan Markle. So, as there were no fashion shoots and money in it for her, she really did not want to trod with her designer shoes and expensive sunglasses through the dust of villages where poor black people live. Oh no, yuck. She'd rather hug a black person in the city who is rich and could possibly donate to Archwell, and of which she only needs to give 5% to charity. Or maybe they won't, but maybe if she hugs tight enough and pushes her 2 peas on an ironing board into him, like she did with the husband of the Deputy Prime Minister of Colombia, you know, there's a world of possibilities. But in Lesotho, for Meghan, not so much. But she also could not afford to let Harry go by himself, because you know there are lovely princesses and Chelsea types in the southern part of Africa. So she would not go, thus Harry could not go. Now, my dears, Harry is not a bright spark, and I do not think he has much business sense. But like his mother, who brought attention to any and every cause she touched, so did Harry. But as his attention wandered and was elsewhere, and he was held up by major moves to Canada and California and the bright lights of show business, Sentebale was sort of adrift. Everyone was off on their own tangent or a mate to support. How much was really done and achieved in the 9 years, yes, 9 years of Harry's absence? I mean, 9 years in which a part of Harry's heart and mind was hijacked and corrupted. And let's not forget how Meghan treated Sophie Chanduka at the Royal Salute Polo Challenge in Florida. As it was an aid of Sentebale, Dr. Chanduka assumed she and Harry would accept the trophy together. But Meghan, Miss Center Syndrome, shoved Dr. Chanduka out of the way to stand next to her on her other side, so she, who had nothing to do with Sentebale or polo for that matter, could take center stage with Harry. Now look, we African women are great. We are hard-working and resilient and kind, but nobody, particularly a two-bit actress from a cable network, shoves or pushes us in any which way. Not ever. I promise you, Dr. Sophie had more resolve than I do. Maybe because she is an Oxford-educated lawyer. But if I was to find myself in her shoes on that stage, the Duchess of Center Syndrome would have gone flying off that stage. Oops! I did not mean to do that, or for that to happen. Oh, so sorry. Not. Meghan would have seen her flat backside without a rear view mirror. Anyway, enough of that. Sophie Chanduka is not your run-of-the-mill woman. She had a world-class education and prestigious jobs all over the world. She's not the type of woman who will allow any man, let alone one who has no education of note and who is high or semi-high on something a fair amount of time. Harry and Meghan both think they are above the law, and so far they had basically and sickeningly been proven right. Not once did justice prevail. They walked away from everything unscathed, as is so far the case in Harry's visa issue. The entire world knows Harry likely lied on his application or got preferential treatment. The whole world knows Harry used semi-legal drugs on US soil. So indeed, Harry and Meghan think they are untouchable. And why? Because strings are being pulled to keep them out of trouble. Dr. Chanduka also cited mismanagement. She does not go into details, but seeing how Harry and Meghan are treating Invictus, I'm sure such mismanagement may include paying for Harry's flight in 2024. I am going to draw some financial filings for Sentebale and see whether I could find anything strange. But remember, guys, inappropriate spending, etc., will not just randomly show up in tax filings. I'm trying to find out more, but remember there's now an investigation going on by the Charity Commission, so I doubt there will be much more coming out, at least for now. But I'm going to see whether I could use some of my old contacts in Johannesburg to go digging, or maybe an acquaintance's daughter could go and ask some deep and striking questions. Well, she is a journalist, so here's to hoping maybe if I put her onto the story, she will give us some insight. My dear subscribers and viewers, friends and foes, for a while I played with the idea to just give up on the royal family and Harry and Meghan because, who am I? Just a lowly, middle-aged South African woman who does not have internet or ever reads anything because everyone in Africa is illiterate, remember? You're right. After 5, nearly 6 years of working hard, doing research and studying psychology and history, British and Americans will randomly pop up, gain almost instant fame, and soon hit, say, 100,000 subscribers with pure gossip, mostly unsubstantiated. Anyway, I was getting bored as well, but over the last few days I've been inundated with pieces of information, ideas, and some pretty strange things. And once again, I'm reminded that this is not really about just Harry and Meghan, but about justice and equality under the law. Okay guys, I'll see you soon. Information and videos will likely come out a bit faster next week, but please know that these longer videos take a bit more time because I'm doing everything myself, the research, the narration, the editing, the whole lot. So I'm going to go with the flow, and if something takes a little more time, then so be it. So guys, I'll see you soon. Please take care until we meet again on the next one. And just as a postscript, you will hear all kinds of noises in the background because it's raining and we're having a proper thunderstorm and the dogs are not used to it, so they tend to bark at the thunder. Okay, well that's it from me for today. Take care. Bye.